Buckle up for a crash course in automotive disasters. While car enthusiasts rave about the masterpieces of engineering, there's a notorious underbelly of vehicles that failed so spectacularly, they've been relegated to history's trash heap. These are the 12 worst cars of all time, machines engineered to disappoint and designed to defy logic. The air was thick with the scent of cigars and polished wood, the low hum of conversation punctuated by the occasional clink of a whiskey glass being set down on a mahogany desk. A group of men dressed in sharp suits leaned over blueprints and charts, their voices brimming with confidence. The walls of the boardroom were adorned with framed photographs of past successes, reminders of the empire they had built. But this was different. This wasn't just another project. This was a statement, a revolution. For years, the market had been studied with surgical precision. Graphs had been analyzed, focus groups had been conducted, and every factor had been considered. The research was airtight. The numbers didn't lie. There was a gap, a perfect space in the industry, just waiting to be filled. And they were the ones who would fill it. They weren't just building another machine. They were crafting an identity, something that would be remembered for generations. The public had no idea what was coming, but when they saw it, everything would change. The secrecy surrounding the project was absolute. Only a select few had been allowed to glimpse the prototypes. Whispers had begun to spread, carried by the media like sparks in dry grass. The word was out. Something big was on the horizon, something unlike anything before it. The marketing machine roared to life. Teasers, leaks, carefully controlled rumors. Excitement crackled in the air. The name, chosen after long deliberation, was bold. It carried weight, history, prestige. It was meant to signify a new era, a new way of thinking. And then, after years of planning, the moment arrived. The unveiling was a spectacle of its own. The world watched, waiting with bated breath. This was it, the moment that would be remembered. The doors of the grand showroom were thrown open, cameras flashed, and then there it was, standing in the light, sleek and proud. For a few moments, silence hung in the air, then a murmur, a hesitation, a shifting of feet. The applause came, but it was polite, stiff, not the explosion of excitement that had been anticipated. Something was off. In the front row, a man in a gray suit furrowed his brow. He tilted his head slightly, as if trying to understand what he was looking at. A woman leaned toward her husband and whispered something under her breath. A few people nodded, but there was uncertainty in their eyes. And then, the first chuckle. Quiet, almost imperceptible. But it was there. It spread. A ripple through the room, barely noticeable at first. A journalist raised an eyebrow, scribbled something in a notebook. Another guest leaned over to a colleague and murmured a single word. Strange, boss. By the time the event was over, the energy had shifted. The excitement had drained from the air. Executives, once brimming with confidence, avoided each other's eyes. Something was wrong, though no one dared say it out loud. Not yet. The first articles were diplomatic, carefully worded. Words like bold and innovative were thrown around. But there was another word, unspoken yet lingering in the air. Unappealing. The whispers turned into voices, the voices into headlines. The thing that was supposed to redefine everything had instead left people scratching their heads. And then the real problems began. The innovations, the very features that were supposed to set it apart, started to show their flaws. The new systems didn't work as smoothly as promised. Malfunctions, frustrations, complaints. Customers struggled with features that should have made their lives easier, but instead left them confused, irritated, disappointed. And worst of all, things broke. The reports trickled in at first, a minor issue here, a small fix there, but the trickle became a flood. The craftsmanship, once praised as forward-thinking, was called into question. The attention to detail wasn't there. The execution hadn't matched the vision. The dealerships, once eager to showcase the future, found themselves saddled with something they couldn't move. The showrooms that had been prepared with such anticipation now carried a different atmosphere: unease. Customers weren't lining up, the numbers weren't climbing. By the end of the first year, the whispers had become a roar. The sales figures, once projected to soar into the hundreds of thousands, barely scratched at expectations. The boardroom, once filled with confidence, was now filled with silence. The same executives who had stood tall in their certainty now shuffled through reports with downcast eyes. Meetings became tense. Fingers were pointed. The name that had once been spoken with pride was now met with grimaces. Decisions were made, adjustments, revisions, a desperate attempt to turn things around. But it was too late. The second year saw changes, a reworked approach, a refined design. The AMC Gremlin, 1970-1978, was one of those cars that you can't help but remember. Not because it was a triumph of automotive engineering, but because it defied expectations in all the wrong ways. Short in length and often dismissed as short in stature, the Gremlin became the automotive equivalent of a bold misstep, a car that was always teetering between being unique and unappealing. It wasn't supposed to be glamorous, nor was it aiming to compete with the muscle cars of its time. Instead, it was designed to be something simple, affordable, and efficient. The problem, however, was that in trying to break away from tradition, the Gremlin somehow managed to miss the mark entirely. The vision behind the Gremlin American Motors Corporation, AMC, was never a company known for taking the safest roads. In the midst of the 1970s, as the auto industry was shifting away from the excess of the muscle car era and toward more compact, fuel-efficient vehicles, AMC saw an opportunity. The Gremlin was an attempt to fill that gap. At a time when gas prices were beginning to rise and environmental concerns were starting to gain traction, AMC believed they could carve out a space in the market by offering an affordable and fuel-efficient car, a sharp departure from the large, heavy, and increasingly impractical vehicles that had ruled the streets for decades. However, the Gremlin wasn't exactly the fresh face of innovation. It was, in fact, based on the AMC Hornet, a more traditional compact car that had already hit the market in 1970. The Gremlin's design was essentially a shortened version of the Hornet, which made it look somewhat awkward and disproportionate, with a stubby rear end that didn't quite match the rest of the car's styling. This odd design decision led to what could only be described as a disjointed aesthetic. A car that wasn't quite a hatchback, but also not quite a sedan, caught somewhere in between the performance struggles, performance-wise. The Gremlin wasn't much of a standout. It was powered by small engines, starting with a 90 horsepower, inline-six engine, and later offering a 304 V8 option, which wasn't much more powerful. While the car could get you from point A to point B, it did so with little flair or enthusiasm. The Gremlin's relatively modest horsepower didn't make it much fun to drive, and the handling wasn't exactly what you'd call nimble. It wasn't sluggish, but it lacked the spirited energy that smaller cars of the era, like the Volkswagen Beetle or Ford Pinto, had in abundance. Even with the V8, the Gremlin couldn't quite deliver the performance that many buyers might have expected, particularly for those looking for excitement behind the wheel. The real limitation of the Gremlin, though, wasn't its size or its power, it was its reputation. While its competitors were vying for attention with quirky, offbeat designs, the Gremlin often landed in the "what were they thinking" category. Its strange proportions, lackluster performance, and the absence of real charm made it a frequent punchline in the world of automotive criticism. Even when it found a niche market, it struggled to shake off the stigma of being a cheap, oddball car. Finding a niche in an unlikely market. Despite the critiques, the Gremlin wasn't an outright failure. Over its 9-year production run, more than 670,000 Gremlins were sold. It found a place in the hearts of budget-conscious buyers, often those who wanted something inexpensive to drive, without the bulk of a larger car. With its small size, the Gremlin was perfect for navigating tight city streets or squeezing into small parking spaces, an appealing feature in an increasingly crowded, urbanized America. For some, the car's quirky, offbeat nature even became part of its charm. It was a conversation starter in a time when automobiles were increasingly viewed as functional and efficient rather than stylish and exciting. The Gremlin also had a more utilitarian appeal for certain buyers, including young drivers, families, and those needing a second car. The relatively low price made it accessible to people on tight budgets, and despite its lack of flair, it was functional, especially in urban settings. A few special editions, like the Gremlin X with a sportier trim, added a bit of personality to the car, but it remained largely an economy-focused vehicle. The end of the line. The Gremlin's production ended in 1978 after nearly a decade on the market. The rise of more efficient Japanese imports, especially the Toyota Corolla and Honda Civic, meant that the Gremlin's economy-minded sales couldn't keep up. AMC also faced financial pressures and couldn't compete with the broader industry shift toward more modern, sleek, and powerful small cars. The Gremlin was simply out of step with the times, a relic of a bygone era when smaller cars weren't just about fuel efficiency, but also about offering something a bit more than just basic transportation. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the vast expanse of the land, flanked by fields that shimmered in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. The hum of the engine was steady, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to match the heartbeat of the journey itself, each turn of the wheels carrying both the vehicle and the traveler further into the unknown. The sound of the wind slipping through the open window was like a faint whisper, the gentle, almost imperceptible pressure of air on skin. The scent of warm earth mixed with the distant promise of rain rolled in with the breeze, a quiet reminder of the world outside. It was neither hot nor cold, just that perfect in-between, where the air feels alive, charged with something unspoken, and every breath taken feels somehow richer, deeper, as though the landscape itself were breathing alongside you. It was in moments like these, when the vast sky above stretched on like a canvas untouched by time, that time itself seemed to fold in on itself. The past, the present, the road already traveled, and the miles yet to come, they all blended together into something intangible, something that could not quite be grasped, but could be felt deeply in the marrow of the bones. A feeling of nostalgia, perhaps, but not for a place or a moment. It was more a longing for the road itself, for the journey that had no destination, a longing for the sense of motion, for the simplicity of the world laid out in front of you, a world where only the next mile mattered, where only the next turn in the road held any true meaning. The sky above was a vast, unbroken blue, painted in hues of gold that deepened as the sun sank lower toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the land. The clouds, those ever-shifting dreamscapes, drifted lazily across the sky, their edges tinged with the last vestiges of daylight, dissolving and reforming as if they too were uncertain of their final shape, caught between the light and the dark. Each cloud seemed to tell its own story, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but with a quiet grandeur that made them seem as though they had been suspended in the sky for eternity, just waiting for the observer to pause long enough to notice. Ahead, the road bent gently, leading into the distance where it disappeared behind a ridge of hills, its end hidden from view. A sign appeared on the horizon, weathered and leaning slightly to one side, its letters faded by years of exposure to sun, wind, and time. It wasn't important, not really, just another marker along the way. Another reminder that the world kept moving no matter how long one paused to take it all in. A reminder that the road itself was an eternal companion, always present, always ahead, waiting to be traveled, to be explored, regardless of how many times it had already been traversed. The road didn't care where it led, nor who traveled it. It simply existed, stretching onward, never demanding more than the tires that pressed against its surface, the weight of time itself slowly sinking into the earth beneath it. The driver's hands rested lightly on the wheel, the fingers tracing the worn texture of the leather, a surface smoothed by years of handling, by the countless journeys taken before. It was the kind of feeling that spoke of continuity, of a connection to something older than the traveler, a feeling that whispered of all the roads that had come before this one, all the travelers who had moved along them. The radio, an old friend, murmured a song from decades past, something soft, something that carried the weight of old memories, melodies that had long since faded from the mainstream, but still held the power to stir something deep within. It was the kind of song that lingered, long after the last note had faded into the ether, weaving itself into the quiet spaces between thought and breath, as if it were part of the very fabric of the journey itself. The road, however, remained unconcerned with such matters. It had no need for music or nostalgia. It simply existed, a thing of pure, unadulterated motion. As the miles stretched on, the gas gauge hovered just above empty, but there was no rush to find a station just yet. The road still had many miles to give, and the night was young. It would not be long before another town appeared on the horizon, perhaps a sleepy village, its lights flickering softly like distant stars, promising the warmth of a diner or the quiet of a small motel. Perhaps another curve in the road would reveal a quiet, hidden spot to pull over and rest. For now, there was no need to worry. The road would guide, as it always had. Towns flickered past, some no more than a handful of buildings clustered together, a few scattered houses, and a single stoplight blinking in the distance, casting a soft red glow over the street corners. There are moments in life that stand still in your memory, moments that feel as if they hold the key to something grand and transformative. These are the moments when we are filled with hope, when we look at something, an idea or a dream, and feel a sense of invincibility. We believe in the vision we have crafted, in the direction we are headed, and in the certainty that success is just around the corner. But as anyone who has chased a dream knows, the road to success is often less clear than it first appears, and the path is rarely as smooth as we envision. We've all encountered those dreams that seem perfect in their inception, shining brightly like a beacon, drawing us in with their allure. The early excitement is intoxicating, and we become fully immersed in the belief that this time, this thing, will be the one to change everything. The possibilities stretch out before us like an open road, endless and inviting, and the future seems within our grasp. There is a sense of certainty that accompanies the beginning of any endeavor. The belief that what we have in mind will work, that we have anticipated every obstacle, and that the outcome will be nothing short of extraordinary. But then as the journey unfolds, the cracks begin to show. At first, they are small, barely noticeable. A hiccup here, a misstep there. We brush them off, telling ourselves that this is just part of the process, that every great achievement has its challenges. Yet, as time goes on, these minor issues grow, multiplying until they can no longer be ignored. What seems so promising now feels like it's unraveling at the seams, and we're left with the crushing realization that what we had hoped would be a dream come true is instead a reminder of the complexity of creation. The road ahead that once seemed so bright is now clouded with doubt and frustration. But it is in these moments, when things begin to fall apart, that we are faced with the most profound question. What now? Do we abandon the dream, walk away, and let it fade into the background of our lives? Or do we find a way to keep going, to adapt, to adjust our course, and push forward despite the setbacks? The answer isn't always clear, and the choice isn't always easy. Yet in the struggle, we often find something far more valuable than the success we originally sought. It's in the flaws, the failures, and the imperfections where the greatest lessons are learned. We often look at the things that didn't turn out the way we imagined and dismiss them, as if they are failures that need to be hidden away. We may even feel ashamed, as though something we hoped for so much has turned into a failure of some sort. But the truth is, there is beauty in imperfection. There is wisdom in the mistakes we make and in the things that don't go according to plan. It's easy to forget, but sometimes the best stories are the ones that don't follow a perfect arc. The things that didn't work, the things that challenged us, are often the ones that shape us the most. They teach us about perseverance, about creativity, about resilience, and about who we are when things don't go right. Failure is not something to fear or avoid. It is an integral part of the journey. When things go wrong, when the dream begins to feel out of reach, we learn more about ourselves than we do when everything falls into place. It is in our struggles that we learn how to adapt, how to innovate, and how to move forward in a world that is rarely as predictable as we might wish it to be. It is in these moments that we truly discover what we're made of. The road to success is never a straight line. It's not a path that unfolds neatly before us, with every step predictable and every decision easy. It's messy, unpredictable, and often frustrating. But it's also the most rewarding road, because it is not in the end result that we find meaning, but in the journey itself. It's in those moments of doubt, when we question everything we believed, that we learn what we are capable of. We discover our true strength, our ability to persevere, and our capacity to adapt. So when the dream seems to slip through your fingers, when it feels like everything is falling apart, remember this: the story is not over. The path you are on is not defined by your failures, but by how you rise in the face of them. The lessons learned from the things that don't go as planned are often the ones that shape our lives the most. And sometimes it's the imperfect journey, the one that is filled with mistakes, challenges, and setbacks, that turns out to be the most meaningful of all. What truly matters is not that you reach the destination as you imagined it, but that you continue forward, learning, growing, and adapting along the way. The most valuable parts of the journey are often the detours, the moments when you stop to reassess, when you take a breath and reconsider your path, when you realize that what you thought was the one Cadillac Cimarron, 1982 to 1988, is a striking example of an ambitious but ultimately misguided attempt to expand a brand's reach into a new market. The idea behind the Cimarron was clear. Cadillac, a marque synonymous with luxury and prestige, wanted a slice of the compact luxury segment that was rapidly growing in the early 1980s. As American automakers began to focus more on fuel efficiency and affordability, the compact luxury market seemed ripe for the taking. However, Cadillac's approach to this new challenge was as controversial as it was unconventional. By essentially badge engineering, a version of a General Motors Chevrolet Cavalier, Cadillac hoped to create a smaller, more affordable luxury sedan without compromising its image of quality. Unfortunately, the outcome was less than impressive. At first glance, the Cimarron may appear to be a reasonable entry into the compact luxury market. It was built on the same platform as the Chevrolet Cavalier, which meant that the vehicle could be produced inexpensively and quickly. However, badge engineering, the practice of rebranding a mass-market car to fit a luxury lineup, did little to elevate the Cimarron in the eyes of Cadillac enthusiasts. To put it simply, this was a Chevy Cavalier in luxury clothing. Its plush interior and upscale appointments, such as leather upholstery, didn't mask the fact that the car's underpinnings and performance were far from those of a traditional Cadillac. Critics and Cadillac purists alike were quick to lambast the Cimarron for its lack of distinction. The car was perceived as a downgraded version of Cadillac's illustrious offerings rather than a true reflection of the brand's legacy. Performance, a key aspect of luxury vehicles, was sorely lacking in the Cimarron. Its engine choices, including a relatively anemic 1.8-liter four-cylinder, did little to justify its luxury price tag. Cadillac's reputation for powerful, smooth-driving sedans seemed far removed from this compact vehicle, which was struggling to find an identity. What made the Cimarron even more difficult to swallow was its striking resemblance to the Chevrolet Cavalier in both design and driving experience. For a brand built on pure luxury, comfort, and prestige, the Cimarron's relatively low-end components and basic features felt like a betrayal to the Cadillac ethos. While its higher-end trims did offer some amenities, such as leather seating and upgraded materials, the car's general build quality and performance were far below the standards that customers had come to expect from Cadillac. Even with its refined interior and luxury-oriented features, the Cimarron failed to capture the essence of what made Cadillac great. The public backlash was swift, with many critics claiming that the brand was watering down its own identity. Cadillac's image as a leader in American luxury took a hit as the Cimarron became a symbol of how brand dilution could go wrong. In its attempt to attract a new, younger demographic, Cadillac unintentionally alienated the very people who valued its traditional qualities of power, prestige, and performance. Despite its disappointing reception, the Cimarron did find a niche market, but it was far from the mass success Cadillac had hoped for. Some buyers appreciated its relatively just low price and luxury appointments. But for many, it simply didn't live up to the lofty expectations associated with the Cadillac name. By the end of its production run in 1988, the Cimarron was largely regarded as a flop, a misstep in the brand's history. The Cimarron is a cautionary tale in the automotive world, a reminder of the dangers of compromising a brand's core values in the pursuit of new markets. Cadillac eventually learned from the Cimarron's failures, and the company would go on to create more successful compact models in the 2000s, such as the Cadillac CTS, a far more successful effort to blend luxury with compact performance. But the Cimarron will forever be remembered as a vehicle that failed to capture the spirit of Cadillac's greatness, a car that couldn't live up to the legendary reputation it carried. The DeLorean DMC-12, 1981 to 1983, is a vehicle that occupies a unique and somewhat paradoxical place in automotive history. It has become one of the most iconic cars in popular culture, largely thanks to its starring role in the Back to the Future film franchise. With its futuristic design, gull-wing doors, and stainless steel body, the DeLorean was a car unlike any other, an embodiment of 1980s excess and ambition. However, beneath its eye-catching exterior lay a host of issues that prevented the DMC-12 from living up to its potential, both as a cam and as the symbol of innovation it aimed to be. The DeLorean's wasty design is undoubtedly its most compelling feature. Its stainless steel exterior, combined with sharp, angular lines, made it look more like something from a science fiction movie than a production car. Its gull-wing doors, which open upward rather than outward, gave it a distinctive look and added to its allure. In an era when many cars seemed to blend into one another, the DeLorean stood out as a bold statement of what the future could look like. It was sleek, polished, and undeniably cool, a vision of the future for the car enthusiast and dreamer alike. But a design alone does not make a successful car. The DeLorean's performance left much to be desired. Under the hood, the DMC-12 was powered by a 2.85-liter V6 engine, which produced only about 130 horsepower. This was woefully underwhelming, especially for a car marketed as a performance vehicle. In an era when sports cars were expected to deliver power and speed, the DeLorean simply didn't measure up. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car's overall performance was more akin to that of a luxury cruiser rather than a sporty roadster. While its distinctive look suggested speed and agility, the actual driving experience was much less thrilling. Reliability was another major issue that plagued the DeLorean. The car's manufacturing was rushed, and the production process was plagued with delays, leading to quality control problems. The DMC-12's build quality was inconsistent, and many early models suffered from mechanical and electrical issues. Customers found themselves dealing with frequent breakdowns, and some parts of the car were particularly prone to rust, even though the body was made of stainless steel. Critics often noted that despite its visually stunning exterior, the car was plagued by issues that made it difficult to live with. In addition, the DeLorean was burdened by financial troubles that marred its production. John DeLorean, the founder of the DeLorean Motor Company, had ambitious plans for the brand, but the company quickly ran into financial difficulties. This led to limited production, with only around 9,000 cars built in total before the company went bankrupt. The lack of a robust financial foundation, combined with the underperformance of the car, meant that the DeLorean was doomed to be a collector's item rather than a mainstream success. Despite its mechanical shortcomings, the DeLorean's role in Back to the Future helped cement its place in pop culture history. The car became inextricably linked with the idea of time travel, of adventure, and of the possibilities of the future. The DeLorean's futuristic image was solidified in the films, where it was depicted as a time machine capable of taking its passengers to any point in history. As a result, the car gained an almost mythical status, far beyond what it had achieved in the real world. It became a symbol of nostalgia, of the 1980s pop culture. and of a time when the future seemed bright and full of promise. However, despite its enduring fame and iconic status, the DeLorean DMC-12 is often remembered for its inability to live up to the hype. While it undoubtedly captured the imagination of car enthusiasts and moviegoers alike, it didn't deliver in the ways that its makers had hoped. Performance-wise, it fell short, and reliability issues continued to plague it throughout its brief production run. And yet, despite its flaws, the DeLorean remains a symbol of the era and a reminder of how a car can transcend its mechanical shortcomings to become something far greater, an enduring piece of pop culture. Today, the DeLorean DMC-12 is revered not necessarily for its performance or practical use, but for its legacy as a cultural icon. It's a car that people remember not for how it drove, but for what it represented. The promise of the future, a glimpse into a world of technological wonder, and a vehicle that somehow, despite its flaws, captured the imagination of millions. In the end, the DeLorean may not have been the car that changed the world, but it's undoubtedly the one that has had a lasting place in the hearts of those who dreamed of a future that could be reached in a single leap of time. The Ford Pinto, 1971-1980, is a car that occupies a dark corner of automotive history, remembered not just for its design, but for the safety controversies that overshadowed its production and legacy. When it was first introduced, the Pinto was Ford's attempt to tap into the burgeoning compact car market, offering an affordable option for the growing number of American consumers seeking a smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicle. However, what was meant to be a modest success turned into one of the most notorious chapters in automotive history, as the Pinto became infamous for its safety issues, leading to what would later be described as one of the most tragic examples of corporate negligence in the history of car manufacturing. At first glance, the Pinto was just another small car, compact, practical, and relatively cheap. It was designed to appeal to a wide range of buyers who wanted a vehicle that could handle daily commuting without the burden of high fuel costs. Ford's marketing of the Pinto emphasized its efficiency and practicality, with a starting price that was competitive in the growing compact car segment. The car's styling, while basic, was not unappealing, and it fit the mold of what many buyers were looking for in a no-frills vehicle. However, as the Pinto's popularity grew, so did rumors and reports regarding safety concerns, particularly surrounding the placement of its fuel tank. In the Pinto's design, Ford had placed the fuel tank in a position that left it vulnerable in the event of a rear-end collision. Crash tests revealed that the Pinto's fuel tank was prone to rupturing and igniting, creating a dangerous fire hazard in the event of even a relatively low-speed rear crash. This problem became even more alarming when it was revealed that Ford had been aware of the design flaw, but made the decision to continue production rather than address the issue. Internal memos surfaced showing that the company had performed a cost-benefit analysis, weighing the cost of fixing the issue against the potential legal settlements in the event of accidents. The conclusion was chilling. It was cheaper to pay for the lawsuits than to redesign the car's fuel system. As the truth about the Pinto's safety issues emerged, the car became a symbol of corporate greed over consumer safety. Public outcry intensified, with the Pinto being heavily criticized for prioritizing a profit over human lives. The Pinto case would later become a textbook example of corporate ethics gone wrong, a reminder of how the pursuit of cost-cutting and efficiency can sometimes lead to catastrophic consequences when safety is neglected. The car was no longer just an affordable compact vehicle. It was the subject of scathing media reports, congressional hearings, and countless lawsuits. The Pinto became infamous, not just for its design, but for the dark corporate decisions that allowed a flawed and dangerous product to continue on the market. While the Pinto did have a modest following during its production run, with over 3 million units sold, its reputation was forever marred by these safety issues. Despite Ford's efforts to make safety improvements in later models, such as relocating the fuel tank and adding safety features, the damage had already been done. The Pinto was never able to shake its reputation as a symbol of corporate irresponsibility. Today, the Pinto is remembered not for its performance, its design, or its place in the compact car market, but for its legacy of negligence and the safety compromises that led to serious accidents and fatalities. Its place in automotive history is largely shaped by the ethical decisions that surrounded its production, making it a case study in corporate ethics, design flaws, and consumer protection. The Pinto's story serves as a harsh reminder of the critical importance of safety in car design and the far-reaching consequences when profit is placed above the well-being of customers. The Pinto is not a car that will be remembered with affection or nostalgia by most. Its legacy is one of lessons learned the hard way, both for the automaker and for the industry as a whole. It stands as a cautionary tale, one that forever links the car to discussions about corporate responsibility and the human cost of negligence. The Pinto is a car that is as much a symbol of failure as it is a vehicle of its time, a reminder that when safety is compromised for the sake of profit, the results can be far more devastating than anyone could ever have imagined. The Triumph TR7, 1975 to 1981, holds a unique place in the history of British sports cars, not for being a true classic, but rather for representing a point in time when style seemed to be prioritized over substance. As part of Bonnell's Triumph's TR series, the TR7 was envisioned as a more modern successor to the earlier TR6, a beloved sports car that had been popular with driving enthusiasts for years. However, the TR7's introduction marked a significant shift in both design and performance, one that many critics and enthusiasts still argue about to this day. From the outset, the TR7's design was a bold departure from the classic lines of its predecessors. While British sports cars of the 1960s and early 70s were known for their sleek curves and flowing organic shapes, the TR7's exterior took on a sharp, angular appearance that was influenced by the March design trends of the era. The wedge-shaped profile with its flat front and rising rear end was something of a shock to many loyal Triumph fans who were used to the more fluid, curvaceous designs of the past. The car was undeniably distinctive, but its unconventional styling received a great deal of criticism, especially in comparison to the classically beautiful lines of its predecessors like the TR6. The TR7 was marketed as a new kind of sports car, one that combined modern styling with a more refined driving experience. Unfortunately, the car didn't quite live up to its promises. Under the hood, the TR7 was powered by a 2.0-liter four-cylinder engine that produced just over 80 horsepower. While this was adequate for a compact sports car, it was a far cry from the power and performance that enthusiasts had come to expect from the TR lineup. The TR7's engine was often described as underpowered, and many felt that it lacked the punch that made earlier models, like the TR6, so much fun to drive. The engine's relatively modest output paired with the car's unrefined driving dynamics, including a tendency to understeer and an inconsistent ride quality, made the TR7 a less thrilling experience behind the wheel than its predecessors. While the TR7 was designed with modernity in mind, it often fell short in delivering the pure driving joy that British sports cars were known for. The car's handling was not as sharp or engaging as that of earlier Triumph models or rival offerings from other manufacturers, such as the MGB or Porsche 924. The TR7's suspension was somewhat stiff, and the steering was often described as heavy and uncommunicative, which detracted from the enjoyment of driving it on twisty roads or winding country lanes. Instead of delivering the sporty thrills that owners craved, the TR7 often felt more like a soft touring car than a true sports machine. In addition to its performance shortcomings, the TR7 also had its fair share of power quality control issues. The car's build quality was inconsistent, and many owners reported issues with rust, electrical malfunctions, and fit and finish problems. These issues were exacerbated by the fact that the TR7 was produced during a period of financial instability for British Leyland, the company that owned Triumph at the time. The company's quality control processes were not as rigorous as they should have been, which contributed to the TR7's less than ideal reputation. Despite its lack of performance and mechanical shortcomings, the TR7 did manage to find some success in certain markets, particularly in North America, where it was marketed as an affordable alternative to more expensive European sports cars. It was a car that, for all its faults, offered a relatively modern and distinctive design that appealed to buyers looking for something different. The TR7 was also one of the first British sports cars to feature radial tires, a monocoque chassis, and mush disc brakes all around, signaling Triumph's move towards more contemporary automotive engineering. However, despite its initial success, the TR7 failed to fully capture the imagination of the sports car enthusiast community. Its wide styling remained divisive, with many never warming to the wedge shape, while its performance failed to live up to the promise of a true successor to the beloved TR6. The car's reputation as a bourgeois style over substance vehicle would stick with it for much of its production run and beyond, and it would ultimately be remembered as one of Triumph's less successful efforts. Today, the Triumph TR7 remains a polarizing figure among classic car enthusiasts. Some collectors appreciate it for its bold design and its role in Triumph's history, but others dismiss it as a poor attempt to evolve the TR formula. While it certainly has its share of fans, it is often viewed as a symbol of the challenges Triumph faced in the 1970s, a company struggling to adapt to a changing automotive world while trying to hold on to the spirit. The Austin Allegro, 1973 to 1982, is one of the most polarizing and controversial cars to emerge from the British automotive industry in the 1970s. Often ridiculed for its odd and unappealing design, the Allegro quickly became a symbol of design failure and engineering missteps, earning a reputation that has lasted long beyond its production run. Intended as a successor to the popular Austin 1300, the Allegro was meant to be a practical family car that offered a comfortable and affordable driving experience. Unfortunately, its design, handling, and reliability issues led to it becoming an enduring example of how even well-intentioned cars can fall short of expectations. From the outset, the Allegro's styling raised eyebrows. Created by the talented British Leyland design team, the car was supposed to offer modern styling, but instead it became a disaster in terms of aesthetics. The shape of the Allegro, with its boxy rear, bulging front, and awkward curves, was widely criticized for being unattractive and poorly proportioned. In particular, the hockey stick curves on the side of the car was a design feature that many found clumsy and out of place. The overall appearance of the Allegro was often described as ungainly, lacking the sleek lines or elegant styling that defined other cars of the era. Many considered it to be unbecoming of a mainstream vehicle, even for its time. In an era when European cars were known for their crisp lines and sophisticated designs, the Allegro looked out of step and out of place. The car's design flaws weren't just cosmetic, however. Handling was another major issue. While the Allegro was supposed to offer a smooth and comfortable ride, the car's suspension and drivability were often described as unrefined and clumsy. The suspension system failed to provide the balance between comfort and sportiness that many family cars of the era were known for. The car's steering was often criticized for being too vague, making it difficult for drivers to feel confident on the road. Additionally, its relatively underpowered engine made for sluggish acceleration, further detracting from its appeal. Whether navigating city streets or taking on winding country roads, the Allegro's handling left much to be desired. It never managed to offer the agility or smoothness expected from a modern family car, and it was quickly dubbed as one of the more lackluster vehicles in British motoring history. Reliability was another major concern for owners of the Austin Allegro. Mechanical faults, including issues with the engine, electrical system, and suspension, were common throughout the car's production run. The Allegro was notorious for breaking down at the most inopportune moments, with many owners reporting frequent visits to the mechanic. The car's build quality was inconsistent, with fit and finish problems making it seem less durable than competitors in its class. Rust was a major problem for many Allegro owners, especially those in areas with harsh weather conditions. The combination of poor reliability and high maintenance costs made the Allegro a difficult car to live with, and its reputation as a lemon among British vehicles only deepened over time. Despite its shortcomings, the Allegro was produced in significant numbers, and it found some success as a budget-friendly family car. Over 642,000 units were sold during its production run, making it one of British Leyland's more popular models, at least in terms of sales volume. The car's interior, while basic, was reasonably spacious, offering a comfortable environment for families who needed a practical, everyday vehicle. However, the lackluster performance and poor handling meant that it was never truly loved by its owners. Even with its affordability, the Allegro's mechanical issues and poor design meant that many buyers soon regretted their choice, opting for more reliable and better performing alternatives. In hindsight, the Allegro story is one of missed opportunities. The car had the potential to be a strong contender in the family car market, but a combination of poor design choices, subpar performance, and reliability issues doomed it to become a footnote in the history of British cars. It became emblematic of the difficulties faced by British Leyland during the 1970s, a period marked by strikes, financial instability, and a lack of quality control in its manufacturing processes. The Allegro's fate was a reflection of the larger challenges the company faced during this time. Today, the Austin Allegro is often remembered as one of the most maligned cars in British motoring history. It has gained a reputation as a cautionary tale of how poor design and engineering decisions can result in a car that becomes a symbol of failure, rather than success. The Reliant Robin, 1973-2002, is arguably one of the most unique and controversial vehicles ever to hit British roads. Known primarily for its three-wheeled configuration and the infamous instability that became its defining characteristic, the Robin's reputation has been shaped as much by its quirky design as by the running joke that has persisted around it for decades. Despite its often humorous status, the Robin's legacy is much more complex, as it occupies a niche in automotive history that is as cultivated as it is criticized. The Reliant Robin was created by the British manufacturer, Reliant Motor Company, as a small, affordable, and fuel-efficient vehicle. The Robin was designed to offer a low-cost transportation solution for people who didn't require the size or complexity of a traditional four-wheeled car. Built on a fiberglass body and powered by a small engine, the Robin weighed only about 500 kilograms, 1,100 pounds, which made it one of the lightest cars on the market at the time. This lightness gave the Robin an inherent efficiency advantage in terms of fuel consumption and operating costs, and it was ideal for those looking for an economical way to get around. However, it was the three-wheel design that immediately set the Robin apart from the majority of vehicles on the market. While this was not an entirely new concept, other manufacturers had experimented with three-wheel cars. Reliant took a different approach by designing the Robin with a single wheel at the front and two wheels at the back. This unique configuration, while offering a reduced tax rate and certain practical benefits, also led to serious instability issues. The car's unbalanced weight distribution made it prone to tipping over, especially during sharp turns, quick acceleration, or sudden braking. In particular, the Reliant Robin became notorious for rolling over in even relatively low-speed driving conditions, earning it a reputation as one of the most unstable cars in history. Over the years, this inherent instability became the source of endless ridicule, often appearing in TV shows and comedy sketches as the punchline of jokes about clumsy driving. The car's infamous tendency to flip over was frequently referenced in British popular culture, with characters in sitcoms like Only Fools and Horses often shown driving the Robin, only for it to end up on its side or roof. This comedic portrayal, while amplifying the Robin's reputation for instability, also reinforced its status as a cultural oddity, an emblem of laughable design failures that became a subject of widespread amusement. Despite its comedic status, the Reliant Robin found a certain loyal following over the years, with some classic car collectors and enthusiasts appreciating its quirky charm. The car's simplicity and affordability made it a practical option for many people, and the fact that it could be driven on a motorcycle license in the UK gave it a unique position in the automotive market. The Robin also gained a degree of nostalgia among those who remembered it as a small-town staple, providing everyday transportation for individuals and families who didn't need the complexity or expense of a traditional car. However, the Reliant Robin's fundamental flaws, its poor handling, lack of safety, and my vulnerability to rollovers, meant that it never garnered serious praise from automotive critics. Its lightweight construction, while beneficial for fuel economy, led to an unforgiving driving experience. With unstable handling and a lack of control on more challenging roads. The absence of a fourth wheel meant that the Robin lacked the stability and safety of regular cars, making it a vehicle that was often difficult to trust on anything but the calmest of streets. These driving issues, combined with its peculiar design, contributed to its long-lasting infamy in the automotive world. Despite the ongoing mockery, the Reliant Robin's legacy is more than just a joke. It stands as a testament to a period in automotive history when manufacturers explored alternative approaches to transportation, sometimes with mixed results. The Robin was never intended to be a sports car or a high-performance vehicle. Instead, it was conceived as a utilitarian solution for those who needed something simple and affordable. While it certainly didn't achieve the universal success of other small cars, it does have a place in automotive history as an example of innovation gone awry. A car that was ambitious in its simplicity, but ultimately failed in the execution. In the end, the Reliant Robin remains a cultural icon, forever associated with its quirks and its flaws. It may not have been the most successful or reliable vehicle, but its distinctive look, imperfect design, the Yugo GV, 1985 to 1992, remains one of the most notorious cars to ever be introduced to the United States market, earning a reputation as a symbol of automotive mediocrity and failure. Produced by the Zastava automobile factory in Yugoslavia, the Yugo was originally intended to be an affordable, no-frills car for Eastern European consumers. However, its introduction to the US market in the mid-1980s quickly turned it into an infamous example of how low-cost, low-quality vehicles could fail to meet even the most basic expectations of American drivers. At the heart of the Yugo's struggle was its performance, or rather, its lack of it. Despite being sold as an affordable entry-level car, the Yugo GV was plagued with underpowered engines that left drivers frustrated with its sluggish acceleration and lack of responsiveness. The car's four-cylinder engine, producing just 55 horsepower, was simply insufficient for U.S. highways, leaving many owners feeling that they were behind the wheel of a car that couldn't keep up with the demands of modern driving. In a time when compact cars were increasingly expected to offer a balance of both efficiency and performance, the Yugo couldn't manage to deliver on either front, creating a significant disconnect between the car's promise and its actual performance. In addition to its lackluster performance, the Yugo's build quality was another significant problem. Critics were quick to point out that the car felt cheap, with poor interior materials, rough finishes, and an overall lack of refinement. Its basic design left much to be desired, with interiors that were both Spartan and uninspiring. The cheap plastics, uncomfortable seating, and lack of modern amenities were all issues that left many owners feeling that the Yugo was more of a throwaway car than a reliable form of transportation. It was a far cry from the sleek, stylish vehicles many American buyers had come to expect, and it felt out of place in the more polished and competitive environment of the U.S. car market. Perhaps most damning of all was the Yugo's reputation for poor reliability. The car was plagued with mechanical issues from the start, and many owners experienced frequent breakdowns, electrical failures, and engine problems. The Yugo's reputation for being unreliable and prone to rust became a major part of its public persona. Mechanics were often familiar with the Yugo, but not in a positive way. Its many flaws meant that it was constantly in need of repairs. While the car's low initial purchase price may have been appealing to budget-conscious buyers, the constant need for maintenance and repairs made it an expensive choice in the long run, as the cost of fixing the car frequently surpassed its original value. Despite these significant shortcomings, the Yugo GV garnered a degree of nostalgia in certain circles, particularly among those who appreciate cars that have earned their place in automotive history as failures. Some enthusiasts view the Yugo as a relic of a bygone era, a symbol of the Eastern European car industry during a time of economic and political turmoil. The Yugo's import to the U.S. was part of a broader effort to tap into the budget-conscious car market, but it quickly became clear that the vehicle's shortcomings made it incompatible with the expectations of American buyers. However, there are those who admire the Yugo for its raw simplicity, its quirky design, and its place in the automotive zeitgeist. In a strange way, the Yugo's failures have contributed to its legend, as it has become a car that people love to mock, but also remember fondly for its place in the history of cars that didn't quite make it. The Yugo's time in the United States was short-lived, with production ceasing in the early 1990s as the car's reputation became firmly entrenched as one of the worst cars of the era. In many ways, the Yugo's failure was not just about the car itself, but about the broader cultural differences between the Eastern European car market and the American car market. The Yugo was a car built for economy, efficiency, and simplicity, values that didn't necessarily align with the demands of American consumers who sought performance, comfort, and reliability. Today, the Yugo's legacy lives on as a cautionary tale of what happens when a car is undermined by poor quality, insufficient engineering, and misaligned market expectations. While it may never be revered as a collector's car or celebrated for its engineering prowess, the Yugo GV remains an icon of automotive failure, forever etched in the minds of those who lived through its brief, troubled run in the United States. For all its faults, however, it still holds a certain charm for those who appreciate the strange, the underdog, and the cars that make history not by succeeding, but by failing spectacularly. The Isuzu Bellett, 1961-1973, stands as a curious chapter in the history of Japanese automobiles, one that defied the odds with its sturdy build and loyal following, but ultimately struggled to live up to the more modern expectations of its time. While the Bellett is by no means as universally maligned as some other cars on the list of automotive flops, it still faces its fair share of criticism and reproach for failing to evolve at the same pace as its more celebrated contemporaries. The Bellett was introduced by Isuzu in 1961 as a compact car meant to compete in the highly competitive Japanese market, which was quickly being overtaken by an onslaught of increasingly sophisticated models. Aimed at providing a more economical alternative to the larger sedans and hatchbacks emerging globally, the Bellett was designed with simplicity in mind, offering a functional driving experience without the frills that often accompanied its pricier competitors. One of the key criticisms of the Bellett was its design, which many found to be outdated and unimpressive by the time the 1970s rolled around. The car's lines, while not inherently unattractive, were unremarkable and lacked the sleek, modern appeal that many other cars were adopting. In comparison to rival vehicles from manufacturers like Toyota and Nissan, the Bellett came off as somewhat pedestrian. Its boxy proportions and basic styling failed to capture the cutting-edge aesthetic that many buyers were beginning to crave. In this sense, it came to be seen as a vehicle trapped in the past, lagging behind its competitors, which were making more significant strides in terms of design and engineering. Performance-wise, the Bellett's engine options were modest at best. While it offered a range of 4-cylinder engines, none of these provided the kind of punch that other compact cars were beginning to offer. By the mid-1960s, as car manufacturers pushed the limits of horsepower and performance, the Bellett's lackluster engine offerings started to seem inadequate in comparison. The car's handling was often described as unremarkable, with critics pointing to its lack of refinement on more challenging roads. This failure to match the increasingly ambitious performance standards of the time became one of the Bellett's most significant drawbacks. The Isuzu Bellett also found itself overshadowed by the rapid rise of more advanced vehicles in the Japanese automotive landscape, which made it seem more like a reluctant relic than a forward-thinking competitor. While Isuzu's engineering was by no means subpar, the Bellett's design and performance limitations meant it was often passed over by buyers who were drawn to the more innovative and modern cars coming from Honda, Mazda, and other makers. By the time the 1970s arrived, the Bellett had begun to feel outdated, and while it enjoyed a modestly loyal following, its ability to compete in a rapidly evolving market began to fade. Yet despite these issues, the Bellett has a certain charm for enthusiasts and collectors who appreciate classic Japanese cars. There is something enduring about its simple and straightforward design, which offers a glimpse into an earlier era of Japanese motoring. Though it never achieved the status or fame of other classic cars, it has earned a place in the hearts of those who see value in its reliability, sturdy construction, and the quiet role it played in the early years of Japanese automotive expansion. The Bellett is a reminder that not all vehicles are meant to be stars, but many still make significant contributions to the automotive landscape. In retrospect, the Isuzu Bellett was a victim of a changing industry. What once seemed like a practical and sensible car gradually fell behind as automotive standards evolved, especially as consumers began to demand more from their vehicles in terms of both style and performance. While it may never be remembered as a classic in the same way as some of its more iconic contemporaries, the Bellett holds a place in history as an example of a car that couldn't quite keep pace with the times, but still deserves recognition for its place in the broader narrative of Japanese automotive development. For those who appreciate its unique legacy, the Isuzu Bellett will always be a reminder that even a car with a dedicated following can be subject to harsh critiques when measured against the rapidly evolving standards of its era.